journalist that their reporting on the origins of COVID-19 was badly wrong, and revealing details about exactly why ABC political editor Andrew Probyn was sacked. The comments were caught by microphones which had been set up for the Osmond press conference with United States Secretary of State Anthony Blinken on Saturday afternoon. These comments were being fed into every major newsroom in the country as part of the broadcaster's pool feed. The damning conversation involved the ABC Foreign Affairs reporter Stephen Jedgets, who was sitting there waiting for the news conference to begin with Matthew Knott from the Sydney Morning Herald and the Australian's Ben Packham. In this recording, Stephen Jedgets makes an astonishing admission that the public broadcaster had failed to investigate the origins of COVID, which some intelligence agencies believe began in a laboratory in Wuhan. He also unloaded on the ABC's decision to sack Andrew Probyn, saying it's the worst decision the broadcaster has made. He spoke about the real reason he was sacked, calling it personal after Probyn had a disagreement with management. Firstly, here's what Stephen Jedgets had to say about my own coverage of Wuhan.
It's a good word. Shari's COVID stuff. Yeah. Just weakens.
Amazingly, she is looking more and more like she
it's gone in phases.
It's just annoying.
It's gone in phases.
She's such a pit bull and she's so unhinged, and yet she might still be right.
And look, I would definitely say it's still definitely
unresolved. Can you be
unresolved,
unhinged and still right?
It's persuasive.
It's looking less...
How does she know it wasn't a bat?
She doesn't. No one does.
But it is, the location is extremely suspicious.
It's
obviously. I don't. You don't want to let the Chinese off the hook, do you?
I feel like I remember being super dismissive of that very early. Not even very early on. For a good while, I was like, that is just the most unhinged thing ever. And I reckon I was overly influenced by the fact that there were some truly nasty and crazy people who were already deep down the rabbit hole. I probably didn't look at it dispassionately enough.
It became weirdly ideological.
Yeah, well, it just became very Trumpy.
Which it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
You sort of had...
Well, even the attacks on Fauci and stuff.
Yeah.
It's sort of
Trumpy.
Stuff,
but you sort of had the three sort of theories there, that, natural.
Yeah.
The Chinese were monkeying around with the virus.
Yeah.
Or they released it as a bioweapon sort of thing. And that was
the bioweapon stuff was always unhinged.
Yeah, see, it got caught up.
And that sort of got...
As opposed to a lab leak.
No one rational took that seriously, but it sort of meant...
It sort of fed into the lab leak stuff or became associated with it.
Yeah.
Look, nice to hear my colleague Ben Packham defending my coverage, but calling me unhinged and a pit bull, well, I describe my investigative book, my features, my documentary, my dozens of world-exclusive articles as careful and forensic. I've interviewed hundreds of people, both on and off the record, including whistleblowers, Wuhan sources, intelligence officials, government insiders, investigators, and more. I've spent hundreds of hours of my time away from my children, or when I should have been sleeping late at night and very early in the morning, to investigate this because I felt, and I still feel, it's incredibly important to know the origins of the pandemic. But more importantly, did you hear that astonishing admission about why Stephen Jedgets, the ABC's Foreign Affairs reporter, why he didn't look into this story because of ideology? Have a listen again.
I feel like I remember being super dismissive of that very early. Not even very early on. For a good while, I was like, that is just the most unhinged thing ever. And I reckon I was overly influenced by the fact that there were some truly nasty and crazy people who were already deep down the rabbit hole. I probably didn't look at it dispassionately enough.
I mean, the ABC is meant to serve public interest and public interest journalism, and the origins of the pandemic, what was unfolding in Wuhan, is absolutely in the public interest, with 7 million people who have now died. But this stunning admission that a journalist didn't consider or investigate it because of ideological reasons. Paul Barry and the ABC's medical expert Dr. Norman Swan also dismissed a lab leak. And this attitude seems to have permeated the ABC. It's a disservice to our society, and it's a shame that public interest journalism wasn't pursued. But the conversation, caught on hot mic, then turned to Andrew Probyn. Stephen Jedgets gave the inside word on why the ABC's political editor was dumped. He describes it as the worst decision and claims it was personal because Probyn didn't get along with ABC Canberra boss Michelle Ainsworth. He talks about arguments over editorial decisions. Have a listen.
But honestly, there are so many of the people popping up on ABC. There's 9 new people joined. Like on News 24, all these people from Canberra, I literally have no idea.
Yeah, they've really got a lot.
These young people. And I'm like, they're all getting paid 70,000, whereas like they're probably 4 or 5 of them for probes. But I was like,
well, it's going to be
so
there's going to be these new positions created as well
through TikTok.
Yeah. And I actually feel for them because they are going to walk into a really hostile environment. And it's not their fault.
Is it split? I heard it's split between the kind of pro-probes, newsy kind of people, and then the...
There was a generational...
I didn't know how to say it.
There was a generational and there has been a generational split, and it was the worst thing. Like, it was really, really awful. Like, because whoever the leaked to our dear friends in Australia, I mean... but like...